Good evening, everyone that is watching. This is a penetration test and risk management presentation on how to gain root access to a Kioptrix 1 virtual machine and virtual machine access mitigation strategy by myself, Alan Mohendo. The prerequisite is to have the Kali Linux virtual machine up and running and the Kioptrix virtual machine that you're trying to hack into running as well. Running the ifconfig and nmap, I'm able to identify my Kali IP address and the machine I'm trying to hack into. Running the MSF console command to use the Metasploit to discover the Samba version being used. As the screenshot shows, this helps me discover the version being run and setting the R host, which is the target. Googling the Samba version helps me exploit the code by copying it, pasting it in the Kali box, saving it, running it through the GCC 10.c compiler. Here I'm able to view the folder on the Kioptrix. With this, I'm able to get the menu after running the executable using the Linux platform command shown, and I'm able to access the Kioptrix machine as root. Trying to add a user and their password proved impossible because the user add command was not available in the list of commands. So I had to search for it by using where is user add, where is password, as they were saved in different directories. As shown, I was able to identify and I was able to run and add the user and their password. As shown in the screenshot, I was able to add two different users and their respective passwords. And as the screenshot shows, I was able to log into the Kioptrix machine using the different users that I had created. Provided here is a summary on the mitigation techniques to secure the system from privilege escalation, where upgrading and replacement are not options. When upgrading or replacing a system is not an option, there are several mitigation techniques that can be employed to secure a system against privilege escalation attacks. The principle of least privilege, where you assign users the minimum levels of access rights and you review and audit user permissions regularly. Access control lists and file permissions. Here we implement strict SELs on sensitive files and directories and ensure proper file system permissions specifically for system files and executables. Modular patching is also a mitigation technique. We have application whitelisting, where you only allow approved applications to run on the system. This helps prevent unauthorized or malicious software from executing. We have secure configuration. Harden the system configuration by disabling unnecessary services and features. Also follow security-based practices and benchmarks for the specific operating system being used. Network segmentation is another mitigation technique. This is where you isolate critical systems and limit network access to reduce the attack surface. User account control and sudo. On Windows, ensure user account control is properly configured. On Unix-like systems, configure sudo to limit which users can elevate privileges and for which commands. Logging and monitoring. You implement comprehensive logging of system activities, especially those involving privilege changes. Multi-factor authentication is another mitigation technique. Implementing multi-factor authentication for administrative access and sensitive operations. Remove or restrict SUID and SGID binaries. On Unix-like systems, minimize the number of SUID and SGID binaries and ensure they are properly secured. Application sandboxing. Run applications in isolated environments to limit their access to system resources. Memory protection is another mitigation technique. Enable address space layout randomization and data execution prevention if supported by the system. Regular security audits. Conduct frequent security audits to identify and address potential vulnerabilities. Incident response plan. Always have a plan. Develop and maintain an incident response plan specifically addressing privilege escalation scenarios. User training is another mitigation technique. Educate users about the risks of running unknown software or clicking on suspicious links that could lead to privilege escalation attacks. Restricted shells. Use restricted shells for users who need limited system access. These mitigation techniques, when implemented together, can significantly reduce the risk of successful privilege escalation attacks, even on systems that cannot be upgraded or replaced. The key is to create a layered defense strategy that addresses multiple potential attack vectors. Next, we describe the different types of attacks, beginning with the buffer overflow. A buffer overflow occurs when a program writes more data to a buffer than it can hold, overwriting adjacent memory locations. Attackers exploit this vulnerability by inputting more data than expected, potentially overwriting important memory areas to execute malicious code or crash the system. This can be categorized as a memory corruption attack or software vulnerability exploit. Privilege escalation. This is the act of exploiting a bug, design flaw, or configuration oversight in an operating system or software application to gain elevated access to resources that are normally protected. Attackers use this to gain higher level permissions than they are normally allowed, potentially gaining administrative or root access. This can be categorized as an access control attack or post-exploitation technique. Rootkits. A rootkit is a collection of software tools that enable an unauthorized user to gain control of a computer system without being detected. Rootkits are designed to hide their existence and the existence of other software, often malicious, making them difficult to detect and remove. This can be categorized as stealth malware and persistent mechanism. Trojans. A Trojan is a type of malware that disguises itself as legitimate software to trick users into installing it. Once installed, Trojans can perform various malicious activities, such as stealing data, installing more malware, and providing unauthorized access to the attacker. This can be categorized as malware and social engineering. Backdoors. A backdoor is a method of bypassing normal authentication in a system, securing remote access to a computer while remaining undetected. Attackers use backdoors to gain persistent access to a compromised system, often installed after initial exploitation. This can be categorized as persistent mechanism, remote access tool. Viruses. A virus is a type of malware that, when executed, replicates itself by modifying other computer programs and inserting its own code. Viruses spread from one computer to another, often causing damage to data, software, or system performance. Categorization: self-replicating malware, file infector. Return-oriented programming. This is an exploit technique that allows an attacker to execute code in the presence of security defenses, such as non-executable memory and code signing. It works by chaining together carefully chosen machine instruction sequences or gadgets already present in the program's memory, bypassing the need to inject new code. This can be categorized as code reuse attack, memory corruption, exploit technique. Common social engineering attacks. Social engineering attacks are psychological manipulation techniques that exploit human error to gain access to sensitive information or systems. These attacks rely on tricking people rather than hacking systems, often using deception, manipulation, and exploitation of human psychology. This can be categorized as human-targeted attack, non-technical attack vector. The common types of social engineering attacks include phishing, deceptive emails or websites that appear legitimate to steal information; pretexting, creating a fabricated scenario to obtain information; baiting, offering something enticing to trap the victim; tailgating, unauthorized entry by following someone with legitimate access. Summarizing the above taxonomy of attacks, these attack families represent a broad spectrum of cyber threats, ranging from technical exploits to psychological manipulation. Understanding these categories helps in developing comprehensive defense strategies that address both technological vulnerabilities and human factors in cybersecurity. Thank you very much. Next are my references.